Good morning and welcome to Hope, Faith, and Joy Daily Devotion with me, Pastor Amanda. And it is Thursday morning, and we are taking a look at chapter 30. Now, if you thought Laban was being tricky with, exchanging his daughters to give to Jacob was enough drama, today we have some more drama. It is quite exciting. And so what we find out is that, Rachel is not able to bear Jacob any children. So she gets the bright idea, just like her grandmother, Sarah. She decides she's going to give Jacob her maid, Bilhah, to bear him a son. So this is like Sarah and Hagar. So now she's offering her maid to be his wife to bear her a son, because it says that she is jealous that Leah, her sister, is able to produce so many sons. And so out of this jealousy, she decides Bilhah is going to be the one that bears sons for her. And so it says that Bilhah was given to Jacob as a wife, and she bore a son. And so Rachel is like, okay, this is great, and I'm going to name him Dan. And then we find out that this wasn't good enough. She wants more, because she is in competition now with Leah. So Bilhah then has another son, a second son, and she names him Naphtali. And so what we see then, talk about family drama here, Leah is now like, oh, competition, bring it on. I'm going to give Jacob my maid. So remember, these are the maids that Laban gave to them earlier. So Zilpah now also becomes Jacob's wife, and she bears a son, and he is named Gad. And then Zilpah does another son, and he is named Asher. So what we see here is that this is something that I think is important to recognize, is even though these women don't trust that God's going to use them to live into Jacob's promise, God is still able to use these other women to also help produce the 12 tribes. I mean, this is what's being produced right now, are the 12 tribes of Israel from all of these sons. And yet what we see is it's coming out of a lot of family dysfunction. Talk about dysfunctional family. So what we find then is that Leah's son has been out harvesting mandrakes. And according to the Bible, mandrakes were considered to be a fruit that were an aphrodisiac that helped with fertility. So Rachel is like, I want those mandrakes, because she wants to still produce her own son. And so Rachel tells Leah, if you give me Reuben's mandrakes, I'll let you sleep with Jacob tonight. So they make the exchange. Leah goes out to Jacob, and she's like, you're supposed to be with me tonight because I bought you with my mandrakes. And at this, Leah does conceive a fifth son, and his name is Issachar. And then she has one more child, a sixth son, and he is named Zebulun. And then we find out the first girl enters into all of this birthing that's happening, and we find Dinah, and we'll get to hear her story a little bit later. So then it says this really interesting line that God remembered Rachel. And it says that he then finally opens Rachel's womb. And she was able to have a son, and his name is Joseph. And it's interesting that it is at this point in time that Rachel has now given Jacob a son named Joseph. Jacob is now ready to move away from Laban and start his own family. He's like, now he's ready to make his way, because for him, the promise, is wrapped up in his favorite. And he also realizes he has to have land and children to make God's promise fulfilled. So he's like, oh, I need to get some land now. So he goes to Laban and says, okay, it's time for me to go. And Laban's like, well, what are the wages that you think you should be owed? And the reality is Jacob knows wages are not going to help him have prosperity. He needs to have animals. He needs to have a flock. So both men think they are tricky as they can be. And so we find that Jacob says that every one of your speckled or striped or black sheep, I'm going to take those. And then all of the perfect ones, I'm going to leave for you. And I think that's fair enough, because I've been, shepherding for so long. That's fair. And Laban's like, oh, yeah, that's a great idea. And so what he does is Laban goes through his flocks, taking all the striped ones, all the spotted ones, all the black sheep, and he hands them off to his own sons and sends them about 3 days out to pasture so that Jacob can't even get near them. So Laban's like, okay, yeah, have whatever you want. Well, then Jacob's like, well, I'm going to, spend a year here to, see what's produced. And so this is not very scientific, but this is how the story goes, is that Jacob then gets these special wood rods that he has. And what he does is when the animals come to the drinking trough or to the well or wherever they're drinking, he puts these rods in front of them, and it's supposed to produce these speckled animals, because if they look at this rod while drinking the water, they'll conceive these kind of animals. And so what it says is that during this time, Jacob then only puts these rods in front of the strongest of the animals. And then if it's a weak animal, he just doesn't put the rods in front of them. And so it doesn't mess with his. And in the end, he ends up having a very nice sized flock because of this trick that he is able to do. And so finally, we find out at the end of this chapter that Jacob grew very rich from this, and that his sheep were far stronger than Laban's, and his flocks were much larger. And with that, he now also has his camels and his donkeys and all that stuff, and he's ready to leave. And so we just see a lot of family drama going on here, and yet we know that God is working through all of these situations. And we're going to find that Jacob and Laban are not the only tricky ones, but we're going to have to learn about who else is kind of tricky a little bit later. But that's kind of what we have today, is just kind of the ongoing drama, and how within this we might not see it at the moment, but we'll see how God makes good on God's promises, and how God can use all of these situations to make things better. And I think it's really important for us to realize in today's world that no matter what's going on around us right now, God can make good out of it. We just have to give it time and continue, I would say, to try to behave a little bit better than Jacob and Laban, but we do our best in living into God's will each and every day. And so I hope that gives you some hope faith and joy for today's daily devotion. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow morning. Take care. Bye.